my name is Ashley Byer and I'm your guide to everything French horn. Today we'll be going over a practice schedule for the Texas All-State Region Etudes. You can go ahead and use this schedule or practice routine no matter what instrument you play. This practice routine is a really great way to get organized and get on the right path to success. So let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to Google TMEA All-State Etudes. Go ahead and click on this first link here. And you can go ahead and at the top, it'll say All-State Band Etudes. Go ahead and scroll until you get to your first etude of your instrument. All the instruments are on here. For this example, we're going to go ahead and use the horn etudes because that's what I teach. So here it says French horn. This is the book that the etudes are from, the editor, the publisher, and the edition. This is super important because sometimes the etudes are published in multiple books, so make sure that the etude that you're looking at is from the exact right book. Right here is the etude selector video. This just has some info on the etudes that are chosen. So right here are the etudes themselves. So the first etude, the title is number 69. These are the pages, and this is the performance tempo. The next section right here is the cut. So for this etude, you play from the beginning to end. And then this part right here is the errata. The errata is just what you need to change in your parts. So if you for example, scroll down to the third etude, you can see that in this errata, in measure 21, the G needs to be sharp on beat 3. So it just shows you some things that need to be changed that aren't already in the original etudes. And then the final thing in here is just the performance guide, which gives you a little bit of insight on each etude. I would go ahead and print the info for your instrument for all 3 etudes because this can be super useful later. Once you do that, go ahead and get the book and find the etudes. So we're going to go ahead and pull up the horn etude here. So this is the first horn etude, and as you're going to see, the very first thing that we want to do is label all your measure numbers. So you can go ahead and see that. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is divide each etude into 10 chunks. So for example, you can see here I have all the bracketed, and I went ahead and numbered all of my chunks 1 through 10. The other last one is right there. And this is going to become important later on when you're putting together your final practice session. But go ahead and just spend the time to divide all the etudes into 10 chunks. And then the last thing you're going to do with your etudes is want you to make a list of 4 to 6 items. These are techniques that you see that you're going to need in order to play the etude well. So for example, in this etude, you can see there's a lot of chromatic stuff. There's a lot of arpeggios. There's a lot of large jumps. Down here, there's some low horn stuff and large jumps. So go ahead and make a list of a couple of different items that you're going to need. And we're going to go ahead and add those techniques to your final practice session. Now, once you do that, you're going to go back, and I have this linked in the bio below. You can also get it on my website. The website link is in the bio. But what I did is I created a template for a 10-week plan for your preparation for the All-State Etudes. So in this very first table, you can see we talked about technique. And this is where those 4 to 6 things that we talked about from the previous etude that you made the list, this is where those things are going to go. So for example, one of the things was arpeggios. So you're going to write arpeggio here. And then whatever exercise you use to work on your arpeggios is going to be here. And then you go ahead and fill out the next one, low register, whatever exercise, scales, so on and so forth. Now, if you come down to the second table here, this is where you're going to insert all the chunks that you divided up in your etudes. So I have etude 1, etude 2, etude 3, and then I have my measured chunks from each etude. And you're going to put 1 chunk in each box. So for Etude 1, the first chunk was measure 1 through 4, and then next chunk measure 47 through 53, and so on and so forth, all the way down. And then Etude 2 here, Etude 3. Now, if you go across your column, and we'll talk about this in the next chunk here, this is what you're going to work on for one whole week. So, the very first week, you're going to work on Etude 1, measure 1 through 4, Etude 2, measure 1 through 4, Etude 3, measure 27 through 31. And if you're a horn player, you can go ahead and feel free to just copy this chart. This is for the horn one though, so if you don't play horn, you're going to have to go ahead and divide up and make your own chunks. And then for the second week, you would do this line, third week this line, and so on and so forth. But now, if you go down into the final practice schedule here, so this is going to be your layout for every time you practice. So whether you're practicing multiple times a day or you're practicing one time, this is your schedule or your layout that you can use every time you practice. And you can go ahead and fill it out. So this layout's supposed to be about an hour of practicing. And it starts with a 5-minute warm-up. You can go ahead and type your warm-up out here. And then you're going to have one of your techniques. So for instance, this arpeggios, you're going to type what you do there, and then the scales and the low horn. I would go ahead and alternate techniques different days. That way you're staying well-rounded and you're not just working on the same thing every time you practice. And then down here is where you do your chunks of your etude. So in etude 1, for 10 minutes, you're going to do whatever your chunk is. So for the first week, it's measure 1 through 4, and then you go on your next chunk for your etude, and then your third chunk. And then finally, this part is super important. So your last chunk, so your last 10 minutes or whatever practice, you can use this reviewing either if you need to work on something from before, earlier that you worked on in this practice session, or anything that you need to work on in the previous practice session. So if you go up here, for instance, if you're on week 3, which would be right here, Etude 2, week 3 is measures 19 through 22. But let's say the previous week, measure 5 through 8 was super hard for you. You can use this last chunk to go back and work on the sections that you need to work on. You can also use this to do any run-throughs or any reviews from the previous week. Thank you for watching my video. Feel free to like and subscribe for more All-State Region Prep, and happy practicing.